Oh, it's just favorite assault.
Just in tonight, a judge dismissing all charges against Jermorrie Simmons. He was the Richmond man initially charged with the death of 55-year-old Derrit Banks. You're watching 8 News at 6. I'm Eric Phillips.
I'm Roland Wilson in for Deanna Albritton tonight. 8 News first brought you this story back in March. The beloved grandfather died in his 10-year-old grandson's arms after being fatally shot. 8 News reporter Sierra Krug is in Richmond now with what the atmosphere was like in court today.
Well, Roland, things actually got so intense in the aftermath of the judge's decision that an ambulance had to be called after, I'm told, someone in the courtroom went into what can only be described as shock. Now, of course, people from the victim's side left the courthouse crying, holding one another, whereas people from the defendant's side did come out cheering and pumping their fists. Prior to the verdict, we heard hours of testimony. The Commonwealth's case relied heavily on recollection from the victim's 10-year-old grandson who was there moments before Banks' death. The child says he and another young kid were playing on his porch with a group of teenagers watching them. The 10-year-old says the defendant, his next-door neighbor, Jermorrie Simmons, was the aggressor, threatening them. Simmons denies this and says the teenagers began harassing him. Both sides agreeing a fight broke out, Banks and the group of teenagers, at least one of whom was armed, versus Simmons alone. The grandson says Simmons responded by retrieving a firearm, whereas Simmons says that he was in too much pain to even move, suggesting the shots fired came from one of the other weapons on scene. The judge's decision essentially shows there's just not enough evidence to prove Simmons was the one who shot Banks. I spoke with Banks' grandson ahead of the verdict. Here's what he has to share with the community.
If you feel like you want to hurt other people, just don't do it. It's not a good idea. For real, I'm telling y'all, as a 10-year-old kid, and I knew my papa had my back, and my papa told me he'd die for me, and that was true. So if y'all have a family member that say that they'll die for you, believe that.
Now, I'm in contact with representatives from both camps, but there were a lot of emotions all around, and Banks' grandson did want to leave the message to the community that he is going to continue fighting against gun violence. And again, he's just 10 years old. Live in Richmond, Sierra Krug, 8 News.